Hello, dear students. I hope you all are fine and you are taking precautionary measures which are required to be taken in these days, especially as per the government schedule and all. We are not able to continue our classes in the school, but not to worry, we will start it here again. Since most of you were absent in the first few classes, so we will start this chapter again. This is the first chapter of geography, as you all know. Geography, first chapter, resources and development. All right. So most of the topics we have already covered, but we will still discuss each and every topic one by one from the very beginning. So even if you have any doubts, you can clarify that also. And after that, we will also solve some of the MCQs at the end of this topic, whatever we will discuss today. And also I'll give you some extra questions which you will have to do it into your notebook. All right, so be careful that all the extra questions you will have to do in your notebook, and some of the questions which I have given is part of your textbook also in these questions. So if it is in the extra question itself, so you need not do it again. All right, so be careful. All right, I will tell you that which are the questions which is also given in the textbook, so need not worry about it. So let's start this chapter. So the very first concept which we will discuss is about resource. What is resource? So anything in our surrounding which satisfies our need. As you can see, it is written over here that anything which is present in our environment or surrounding which satisfies our needs, that is known as resources. That resources now can be available anywhere, all right, but it should be technologically accessible. Means we should have that technical know-how that how we should use those resources. All right, second point is that it should be culturally acceptable. Means your society in which you are living, that society must accept that resource. Not only technologically accessible resource or technologically accessible product can be used as resource, but also it should be culturally acceptable. Similarly, it should also be economically feasible. Means the money can buy that resource. It should not be that costly that one cannot buy that amount of resource. So till the time it satisfies all these three conditions, all these three criterias, we cannot consider anything as resource. So it should be technologically accessible, at the same point of time it should be culturally acceptable, and at the same point of time it should be economically feasible as well, and it should also satisfy our needs. So once a very famous scholar also said that resources are not present. Resources, they are not there in the society as at all, but it becomes. It is something which becomes. Means we do have various important products, goods, etc. present all along the environment, but they are not considered resource till the time it has been added some value associated with it. Since human has that capacity, human has that ability to use or convert certain products into resource, then only resources is what we can use, or we can call a particular product as resource only when it is associated with some of the value, and that value is created by whom? By human beings. So it is the human who creates or who adds value to a particular resource, then only it is termed as resource, because that value is itself the word which means it is satisfying your need, it is satisfying your desire and all. So that value is what creates a product into resource. So we can simply call the product, when we add value to it, it becomes what? It becomes resource. All right, product plus value, but it becomes resource, and it is this value is added by whom? By human beings. All right, so let's move into the next part. Now, in this particular diagram, we have also discussed it in the class itself, but let's uh, see it here also. Now, this diagram particularly explains that human being is the central part. Okay? Now, this human being being a central part, he uses the physical environment. For what? For different kinds of products which we are having in our nature. So we have different types of products available in our nature. That product is used by human being through technology, means we are exploiting these products by the use of technology which is available to the human beings by using his skill, his knowledge. He is using the technology, that how we can exploit those resources, and then these resources are used in the institution itself for planning and development of the society, of the nation, of the country. All right. So human being the central part of this triangle basically uses the nature for the goods, uses his skill and knowledge to exploit these goods, and then he uses the institutional organizations like planning commission, Niti Aayog, which we have in India, and various governmental organization and bodies which plans to use to allocate these resources equally so that it can be used for the development of the society. All right. Now we have also discussed one question, but at the end of this topic I have also given that question again. So here you can see that human being interact with nature through technology and create institution to accelerate their economic development. This is what this diagram depicts. All right. So basically it is the interrelationship between human being as and human being with his nature, with his technology, and with its institution. All right. Next is types of resources. So largely when we discuss resources, there are two basic types which you all know. When we talk about types, so be careful with the word types and classification. All right. So this types of resource, when we say the types of resources, there are two different types of resources. One is natural resource and another one is human resource, largely. All right. Now this natural resource, whatever product which we receive from nature, जो भी हमें प्रकृति से मिलती है, that is known as natural resource, which we get from environment, and it is provided to us by the nature itself. In that, something which can be renewed, something which cannot be renewed. The products which can be renewed are known as renewable. At the same time, it is also known as inexhaustible resources, means they cannot be depleted easily. At the same point of time, the product which cannot be renewed, they are known as non-renewable, and they are exhaustible in nature, means ये खत्म हो जाएगा, but renewable वो खत्म नहीं होगा. So when we talk about renewable resources, the examples of renewable resources क्या क्या है वो? Continuous or flow, means they are flowing in the environment continuously, like wind we have. All right. We have water also, we have uh, sun energy also. So these are some of the examples which we can say that these are renewable sources of energy. Now similarly, we have biological availability also in terms of renewable. So biologically may we have two different types. One is natural vegetation, means all the floral species on earth, that is natural vegetation, and all the fauna species, the wildlife, they come under wildlife. All right. So biologically we have two, natural vegetation and wildlife, and continuous or flow, which is abiotic also. This is abiotic, and this biologically is basically biotic, which we will discuss later on. Now in terms of non-renewable, again we have recyclable and non-recyclable. So recyclable may we have the metals which we can use again and again. In terms of its usability, we can convert its form and features, so we can use it again and again by recycling that particular metal. Now in that also non-renewable, we have non-recyclable products like fossil fuels. Once we use fossil fuel, it get exhausted, so that is why it is non-recyclable. Now human, you might be confused with the word, that since it is written non-renewable, why, how it can be recycled. So friends, please be careful that recyclable means the product which we have acquired already, like metals, they are limited in terms of their quantity in the society, or on the surface of the earth, they are limited in quantity. So whatever we have acquired has already been developed millions of years ago, that we are using right now. So whatever we have acquired, that can be recycled. all right, but it cannot be generated very fast as compared to these resources which can be generated every day. But these metals, it takes millions of years to get generated. Similar, Similarly, this fossil fuel also gets generated in millions of years, like petroleum, which is marine products, and when the dead and decomposed matter of the marine organism, they bury inside the ocean, it converts into petroleum, and when it gets buried on the surface of the land, it is converted into coal. So it takes millions of years, but it is not recycled as well, because it gets exhausted and the residue is your ash. So this is what recyclable and non-recyclable is part of non-renewable resources. Now human may, again we have structures and institution which human, they make structures and institution like different organizations we have. And quantity and quality, quantity and quality is basically the skill, all right. The human, in terms of resources, is basically human who are used as resources in terms of their strength, in terms of their numbers. They are termed as human resource. As quantity and quality is basically their skill, the kind of knowledge they have, that is termed as quality. All right, now next is the classification of resources. So now here, this classification which I was talking about, that you have to be careful with the word classification and types. Now this classification is basically different basis which has been taken to classify resources. All right, we have discussed all these classification in the class, but here we will discuss it again. Since you know that types, we have two types: natural, human. In natural we have renewable, non-renewable. In non-renewable we have recyclable, non-recyclable. In renewable we have continuous, biological. In biological we have natural, vegetation, and wildlife. And in human we had structure and institution, as well as quantity and quality. Now this is classification in terms of different basis. In each and every uh, classification, you will have different types of resources. So on the basis of origin we have different types of resources. We have two different types of resources on the basis of origin, that is biotic and abiotic. On the basis of exhaustibility, again we have two different types of resources, that is renewable and non-renewable. On the basis of ownership, again we have four types of resources, that is individual, community, national, international. And on the basis of development, we have again four types of resources, that is potential, developed, stock, and reserved resources. Now one by one, on the basis of each and every origin, we will discuss the types of resources. All right, but you have to be careful with the basis, that on the basis of origin, how many types of resources we have and which are the two types. On the basis of exhaustibility, similarly, how many types of resources we have and which are the two types. Similarly, for ownership and development. All right, now first of all we will discuss about the resources, or the classification of resources on the basis of origin. So on the basis of origin, we have two types of resources. One is biotic and another one is abiotic. All right, now these biotic resources are those resources which are part of nature, but they have life in it, and they are also obtained from biosphere equally, that it is obtained from nature and have life. They are known as biotic resources. Now taking the example of biotic resources, these can be flora, fauna, fisheries, livestock, and human beings, for sure. So these are biotic. You don't have to be confused with the word biotic and abiotic. Biotic, feel just have this idea that biotic means not all the products which we acquire from nature. All right, biotic means the things which have life in it. Bio is life. All right, bio is life. So whatever product from the nature we have which has life in it, they are biotic. And the similar product which we get from the nature itself, but it is not having life in it. All right, the source is similar, what? It is nature. For biotic also, the nature is the source for abiotic product or abiotic component also. But here in abiotic, the life is not associated. So life is the basic factor which is associated with biotic, but when we say abiotic, so life is not associated at all. So all the things which are composed of non-living things, you can see non-living things, it is known as abiotic. So what are the examples? So from nature we are getting, and they are non-living: rocks, metals, soil, all right, mountains, plateaus. These are all part of what? Water. So these are all part of what? Nature. But at the same time, they are not having life in it, so they are abiotic. Some of the examples you can see: living things, you can see plants, protist, which is a microorganism. Now animals, bacteria, fungus. So these are all living things, part of biotic community, and this is non-living things. So your water, soil, air, minerals, light. So we get all the things from nature, but here they are having life in it, and here they are not having any life. So these are the important components. Now again in this picture also you can see the grasses. Here they are the biotic factors, and the soil, which is the sand present just near the shore, and the water, they are abiotic factors. So second point is our on the basis of exhaustibility, means whether it will get exhausted or not. So on the basis of exhaustibility, again we have two different types of resources. These are renewable resources which can be renewed again and again, and non-renewable resources that once it is used, it gets exhausted and it cannot be used further. Now on the basis of exhaustibility, we had these two resources. Now under this you can see that these resources which can be renewed or recycled are termed as renewable resources. The resources which cannot be renewed, as they take million of years to form, but it can be recycled, as we had the example of metal. All right, for example, in terms of renewable resources, we have solar, water energy, forest, etc., which can be renewed. Here in non-renewable, we have the examples of minerals, fossil fuels, etc., which will get depleted, which will get exhausted when we will use it. So it is non-renewable, but minerals can be recycled, all right, in terms of metals, all right, but oils, fuels, fossil fuels, especially which we are using, it gets exhausted in just one go. So be careful with the word metal. Metal can be recycled and it is part of non-renewable resources. Further, it can be divided into continuous water and wind and flow. May you had this natural vegetation and wildlife which we had discussed earlier also. All right. So these are the basis of renewable and non-renewable resources. Now third one is on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, we have how many types of resources? We have four different types of resources. So the first basis was origin. On the basis of origin, we had two different types. On the basis of exhaustibility, we had again two different types. On the basis of ownership, we have four types. These are individual, community owned, national, as well as international resources. So let's discuss it again one by one. On the basis of ownership, we have these four types of resources. On the basis of individual, as you can see, that individual components means the authority of that particular product is with the individual, that is known as individual resources. Like privately owned asset, it could be your mobile phone, it could be your house, it could be your car, bicycle, etc. When we talk about community, these are the resources which can be used by the community as a whole. Means on these resources, the community as a whole is having the authority. Means no private individual can say that this particular property is mine, or can have authority over that. So it can be owned by the whole community which is residing in that particular area. So the resources which is accessed or which is accessible to all the members of the society, is termed as your community resource. It could be your public park, it could be your playground, it could be your pond, it could be river, it could be any watershed area, it could be any monument, it could be any temple, mosque, etc. So these are part of your community owned resources. In terms of national resource, which is the third one, the resources which belongs to a particular nation, means within the territory of a nation, all the resource which is present is termed as national resources. Technically, all resources which is present within the boundary of a particular nation is termed as its own resource. Now, the example could be roads within the boundary of a nation, oceanic area within the boundary, that is the territorial area. All right, and it is not 19.2 kilometers, so I'm sorry for that. It is 22.2 kilometers, and it is 12 nautical mile. All right, it is 12 nautical mile. Up to 12 nautical mile we have our territorial area, territorial sea area, which is the part of national resources. 12 nm, it is 12 nautical mile, and 1 nautical mile is equal to 1.852. So be careful. 1.8, let me write, 1.852 kilometer is what we have. In 1 nautical mile we have 1.852 kilometers. So in 12 nautical mile we will have about 22.2 kilometers of the area of ocean is part of national resources. Beyond that we have part of international resources, but till 200 nautical mile we have the exclusive economic zone, means the resources which we can exploit in terms of our economy. Means these resources are not part of national resources, but these are part of international resources, but it can be used for economic purpose, for economic prosperity of a country. These resources can be utilized, and it is up to 200 nautical mile. Now beyond 200 nautical mile we have high sea. All right, beyond 12 nautical mile we have high sea. This area is basically governed by UN clause. So those who were present in the class, we have discussed this particular organization in detail, but let me tell you something about it here also. So UN clause is basically your organization, which means United Nation Conventional, United Nation Convention on the Law of Sea. ठीक है, United Nation Convention on the Law of the Sea. This convention is basically the convention of United Nations which governs all the oceanic area which is beyond the exclusive economic zone of a country, means which is beyond 200 EEZ of a country. Now this high sea which is beyond 200 nautical mile, this high sea is there. Now this high sea, any country who wants to exploit the resources from these high sea area needs the permission of UN clause, which is the governmental organization, which is the United Nation body, and 157 members are part of this UN clause who have ratified uh, the agreement of the UN clause till now. So these 157 members are basically the signatory members who have signed the agreement. All right, rest the countries who haven't signed are not following this agreement, and they are not part of it, and they can also not use the resources, since UN clause has the right over all the resources which is present in the high sea. So please be careful with the term UN clause, which takes care of the resources in the high sea, and this high sea starts from where? From beyond 200 nautical mile. And also this 200 nautical mile is from the land boundary itself. So in India, from the land boundary itself we have this 200 nautical mile, and from land boundary itself we have this 12 nautical mile. All right, till here we have 12 nautical mile. So be careful that this 200 nautical mile also includes this 12 nautical mile. So in general we can say this 200 nautical mile is basically only 188 nautical mile. This is not kilometer, I'm sorry, once again, this is nautical mile. All right, Now, next. So again, you can see this individual, the example of individual resources. We have example of community owned resources, the parks, the example of national resource, Indian Railway, drains, and etc., which is part of in the national resource, the national economy, and international resource. So here in this particular image also I can let give you some examples. You can see this is your baseline. All right, this is your baseline, that extreme boundary of the land. Now from here till here we have 12 nautical mile, which is the territorial sea. Here you can see this is the territorial sea, 12 nautical mile from baseline. This is the baseline. Now this is contiguous zone from 12 to another 12, that is 24 nautical mile, and from this baseline, only from this baseline to this particular line we have 200 nautical mile, and this is the exclusive economic zone of a particular country. So this 200 nautical mile is also from the baseline, and where is the baseline? This is the baseline. Okay, and beyond that we have the high sea, which is governed by whom? UN clause. So these are some of the things which you need to have. You can also make your important notes, as we have already covered these things in the class, but you can also make your own notes. And so I hope you got all these points. All right, now last, uh, let's have some of the points, important major points in terms of all these resources, as you are having problem as you were having problem in the class also, that you were saying that you need some of the definitions of all the resources. So you can have it here also, that individual resources are resources owned privately by individuals. Like example, may we have land owned by farmers, allotted by the government against the payment of the revenues. We have plantation, pasture lands. We just matlab, individual means individual authority. That's it. The most simple method, or most simple, I would say, trick to learn all these resources is that if it is the word itself which describes the whole resource. Individual means individual authority, and the resources or the product which is having value, but at the same time it is controlled privately, individual resources. Similarly, the product which is having value and it is owned by the community, which can be accessed by the community, community resources. All right, so these are the examples which is also given. We also have national resources. Again, we had discussed what are the national resources. Some of the examples which are given over here: territorial water, again from the baseline to 12 nautical mile. EEZ from baseline to 200 nautical mile. I'm sorry, once again, this is 200 nautical mile, not 200 kilometer. So please correct it. It is not kilometer, it is 200 nautical mile. The oceanic resources beyond 200 nautical mile of the exclusive economic zone, which belong to open ocean or high sea. It is also known as high sea. And no individual country, as I already said, no individual country has the authority over that resource which is present in the high seas area, in the high sea area. And who is governing that resource? UN clause. And the country which wants to exploit the resource from that high sea area needs the permission of UN clause, and only after having the permission of that body, the country can exploit the resource. But being a prominent nation in the Indian Ocean, we have one advantage, that India had to obtain the right to mine manganese nodules from the bed of the Indian Ocean from an area which lies beyond the exclusive economic zone. But since we are so prominent in that Indian Ocean, that is why Indian Ocean is named after, which is also part of your ninth class question, that why Indian Ocean is named after India. So this is the longest coastline in the Indian Ocean is shared by India, and being the largest nation in that particular region, we are having the authority and we are having some prominency. That is why the Indian Ocean is also named after our country. Now, the last topic in terms of your classification is on the basis of development. So, on the basis of development, again, we have four different types of resources. These are potential, developed, stock, and reserves. So the first one is potential resource. These are resource. So potential word, with the word itself you can say the things which are at rest, means resources which are found in the region but have not been utilized. What is the reason? That we don't have that technologically, we are not that much accessible, we are not uh, we don't have that technical know-how to exploit those resources. We know that resources in these regions are present, but we are not having the suitable amount of technology so that we can exploit those resources. So they are part of potential resources, means the quality of resources is known, all right, but we are not able to use it. Developed resource means the resources which have been developed completely and which are also being used, which are surveyed, and their quality as well as quantity is known. So here you can see their quality is also known and their quantity is also known for utilization. And the development of resource depends on the technology and level of their feasibility. Let's take an example. Suppose a resource is present and you know that yes, this resource is developed in this particular area at its fullest, means the resource is now prepared for its further usage, but and also its quality is known, that yes, this resource can be used for a certain this kind of work, and the quantity, the amount of resource which is present, that is also known. Then it is termed as developed resource. When we say stock, means the resources which have the potential to satisfy human needs but there is no technology, again similar to what we have potential, no technology to use, is known as stock resource. Like water, as you all know, that water is having the component or the compound of hydrogen as well as oxygen. Two atoms of hydrogen we have and one of oxygen. So we have lots of hydrogen present inside the water, but which can be used as resources for energy, but we don't have that technology available that we can exploit those hydrogen from the water body itself for converting it into any kind of energy, all right. So this is, again, we are not having the technology and the resources stock, means we know the quantity, all right, we know the quantity, but we are technologically we are not that much capable to exploit these resources. Next is your reserve resource or reserved resource or reserves. They are subset of stock only. So stock is the broader term, and under stock we have reserves which can be used with existing technology but are conserved for future generations. Matlab, here we know the quality also, we know the quantity also, and the quantity is in limited amount. So we need to conserve these resources also. So that is why they are known as reserves. Means we know the quantity but we have to use it properly, we have to use it judiciously so that it can be, so that it should be available for the future generations to come. Like what we have, like river in the water we have, it is used to a limited consent for generating electricity so that it can be used in the future, all right. So this is one example which is given over here. So let me explain it to you once again. Reserves, so basically reserves, it is part of stock, all right, this is subset of stock, but the existing technical know-how which we have, all right, so that existing whatever we have in terms of our technologically adaptability, in terms of our technologically mind, we can use these resources, we can use the reserves which we have. With whatever amount of technology we have, we can use these resources. And the problem is that we are not utilizing it to the fullest. Means we know how to use it, we also have the technology how we can exploit these resources, but we are not using it to the fullest. Like the amount of water we have in the dams, the amount of water we have in different forest reserves, the amount of water we have in the river can be used for hydroelectric power generation to the fullest, so that that power generation can be utilized in different states and it can also be exported in different countries. But we are not using those resources to the fullest, we are just storing the water in the dam, in the reservoir, but we are not using it to the fullest. So what is the reason? That we are, though we are having the technology, we are not using the The problem is what? Capital investment. The problem is what? That we are not using it is in terms of the physical investment, the capital investment which is required, it is not present. Being India a developing country, the people are not investing in these things. All right, so basically the problem is with capital investment which we are not receiving from different countries in these sectors. Otherwise, in terms of water resources, we have very large amount of water resources present in our country, but we are not using it to the fullest. So but these resources, these water dams, these forests, which can be used for generating different kinds of power resources. All right, let me give you example of potential also. Like Rajasthan potential at rest, means Rajasthan and Gujarat, you know, it is a very large area, very large state it is, and desert area is also present over there. So desert area is actually receiving very large amount of insolation, the incoming solar radiation from the sun. So now those solar energy can be utilized for power generation, which can be used for setting up these solar panels and all, but they are not being utilized. So we know that we have the resource, but we are not utilizing it. They are potential, means we know that we have the resource, but we are not utilizing it, and we the quality and quantity is not determined in potential. In developed, or you can say this quality is determined, sorry, this quality of potential resource is determined, but quantity is not known. Developed may quantity and quality is known, and it is developed fully, but we are not having that technical know-how to use these resources. Stock may, again, the broader term, stock may, we know that yes, the quantity is known, but how to use it we don't know. Here reserves may, the quantity is present, okay, quality is present, everything is present, technology is also present, but due to lack of capital investment, due to lack of government attention, we are not using these resources. All right, next, now on the basis of all the topics which we have covered till now, we have covered till uh, uh, the resources, we have discussed what are the resources, how many types of resources we have, and classification on the basis of four different types. So let's have a recap and a quick look that on the basis of, first of all, resources, it should be present in the environment, which should be technologically accessible, it should be culturally acceptable, it should be economically feasible. All right, so resources. Now we had also interdisciplinary interrelationship between human being, physical environment, technology, and institution, how human being exploit these resources from the nature with the use of his technical know-how, and how he uses the institution to convert it into planning of a society or developing the economy of a nation. Now in terms of resources, the types of resources which we discussed was natural, human. Natural may we had two types, renewable, non-renewable. Renewable may again we had two types, continuous, biological. Non-renewable may we again had two types, recyclable, non-recyclable. Biological may be हमें we had two types, natural, vegetation and wildlife. Now human may we had again two types, structures and organization, and quantity and quality of human. All right, so don't get confused. It is not about any product, quantity and quality of human. ठीक है, and on the basis of different uh, topic, we discussed the classification of resources. On the basis of origin, we had two types, biotic, abiotic. On the basis of exhaustibility, we again had two types, renewable, non-renewable. On the basis of ownership, we had four types, individual, community, national, international. On the basis of status of development, we had four types, potential, developed, stock, and reserves. So that's it for today. Now on the basis of these topics only, we will have some MCQs, so which you will have to solve. So the resources which are found everywhere is known as what? It is localized. ठीक है, the resources which is found at a particular place, it is known as localized. All right, and the resources which is found everywhere, just like wind, water, air, which is present everywhere throughout the surrounding, it is known as ubiquitous. So don't get confused, ubiquitous is the word which is for everywhere. Localized means the resource which is local for a particular area, like let's say gold. Gold is local for kolar gold fields, which is present in Karnataka. When we say coal, coal is present in Jharkhand, in West Bengal, so the coal is basically local for those area. But ubiquitous means which is present all along, everywhere, wind, water, air, etc. All right. So this is I have done for you. Now rest all you have to do it yourself. The following is are the non-renewable resource you can find out. Third is resource which can be renewed again and again. They are fourth, which one of the following is an example of biotic resource? Again find out which one of the following is example of biotic resource. Well, this is repeated one, right? On the basis of ownership, resource can be classified into how many types, that you have to tell. Which of the following resources can be acquired by a nation? Okay. And the last one is which one of the following is an example of non-renewable resources. Next is, here we have some of the extra question which you have to do it in your notebook, so please be careful. All these questions you have to do it in your notebook. What are natural resources, that you have to write. Give example of human made resources, only examples. Explain the role of humans in resource development. Actually, we this is the question which we have already discussed in the class, and I had given this in the homework. So those who have done this question in their homework, they can skip it. Otherwise, those who haven't done, they have to write this question and its answer also. Now fourth one is, what is inexhaustible resource of energy, that you have to write. You also have to give example. What are biotic and abiotic resource, give example. This is part of your textbook question, so when we will discuss the textbook question, you need not do this question again. So this is part of your textbook question, you can just write in the bracket textbook in the question itself when you will do it in your notebook. Now state some example of exhaustible resources which are renewable. And lastly, we have the differentiate between, in which you have to differentiate this national and international resources by giving three distinct points which is different from each other. All right. So thank you so much for this lesson, and I hope you understood each and every topic, each and every concept, and I hope you will do all these questions in a better manner with proper understanding and in your notebook with neat and clean handwriting. So thank you so much. In the next lesson, we will discuss about development of resource planning, and land resources. All right. So be prepared for that also. And I would like to suggest you that in the meanwhile, when you are at your home, you can just have a look in your textbook, and you can write the notes which I am giving you in the PPT as well. You can write down all the notes by making the flow charts as I am making in this PPT, and as I was making on the board also, on the whiteboard also, the way I was making the flow charts, that you have to continue. And the way it is given in the PPT, you can just make it the way it is given. All right, that will be your notes as well. So thank you so much. Bye.